Rain, the source of Earth's fresh water and essential to life. Since our earliest ancestors walked the land, rain has shaped humanity and played its part in the rise and fall of civilizations.
There's a famous saying, "Wekalani ola kahonua," and in Hawaiian, and it means when the heavens cry, the land lives, and that's what rain is.
And that's why it continues to play a pivotal role in the rituals of societies around the world. Rain refills our lakes and reservoirs, providing the water each of us needs every day. It feeds us by nourishing our soil, enabling our crops to grow and our livestock to flourish.
雨对人类的这个生存和发展是有非常重要的这个意义的。
But as rainfall patterns become more unpredictable, how will our relationship to rain be transformed in the years to come? And how do we make the most of this precious resource? The water that rain provides may well be our single most valuable commodity. After all, none of us could survive much more than 3 days without it. So as climate change disrupts rain around the world, how are communities adapting to the shortfall? And too much rain is a catastrophe just as deadly as too little. As the consequences of our changing climate become clearer, how we make the best use of rain is now one of the most pressing questions of our time. And if we fail to find the answers soon, the price we have to pay may just be too high. The west coast of Ireland gets plenty of rain each year. However, it's the continuous struggle with a lack of water that defines the lives of those living on Inisheer in Galway Bay.
Tá gántana isce ar an nGaeltacht seo inis le aimlíonn déag. Tá sé 9 mbliana 10 mbliana ó bhí muidir ná séasar agus go sa haon gan saora. Is éochhachaí nGaeltacht go bunúsach. Éon bháisteach a hitchans ní aoninte thart mar méar mo déad agus a chuir san nómod imín se bhaintar a seachtain.
Wel fwy láidir muidir gúil sus le tríchéad in gan bliana ach sa saoire ó aber máirte go sa gná blian tá sin cuairteirí teacht agus bíonn deis na gardú leis go dtí aber léidir lein nóis deantead go meach sus le míle go le sráintear a takeisteach a bhar lean láis beidir gemacht a ríisteach ar nó testí nuisci le chulas orta úsáis leiris agus chuilead so caafar freastal ar a méid an daoine.
Móchttar a tuisce braintse tá faoi bháir na huiire tá muidir de hínéag san naí agus ar éis agus 7 maidin so sin 8 nuair a chuaig gan a haig gan éanisce.
To alleviate the problems, 200,000 litres of water a day are shipped in during the driest summer months.
Tá gan isce ar mád as dros a bhíl faoi rós a bhó lena sí rá go dtí go báisteach taobh seo go bhéit mo chéin isce bhailú a chuir don numar tóca sé tam a bhain ismat trúmacha tá gealta níl aon túir isce bháisteach sa tú breanna bhar bhéile.
The resourceful people of Inisheer have their own methods of collecting water and use their supply wisely for projects like their community garden.
ní intas gur an seanach goláin nach cámacha tuisce salach go dúra tú steach an tuisce gláin. Bhí tú íon tú cinse gur isce gláin salma chatú macha tuisce agus bhain tú cúpla úsáid as isce. Níoch daoine gus casa in isce na bhataí, tar éis na fataí a bhro.
Since the island relies on rainwater for its freshwater supply, this is collected in purpose-built tanks.
Siada le cránal, siada an céad áitina le séir tar éis báistí go féidir an báistí a bhailú, isce bhailú le cur a gobal le séasar agus cosa héidir éis tar éis troma. Stúcar ag citeach del a chad náitse ní hesa tiosing íomhre nó tar éis réimtí báistí féad a hesa go dtí seán. Tá sé seo tromínis ó bhhar na beltainna seo caite. Ní héite bháisteach sách trúm le éonis go chuirte le chuir gobar le tú teréis go dtí namar.
Is dáhaí nach dugan tú faoi deara cecha mór agus tá tú spáráil tuisce go dtí go mín cuairteir a heach agus ghfuil tead a néchan na láb agus a fágal a tuisce roicht agus tá tú breanú agus tá sé nós gur nóta leichead a tá ar a ligan tríos le fána go tú rá náid na sin. Sinach í bhfuil muid cleachta tain, ach ní drochruda. Agus dálam tú fáid, agus dálam tú cusmharú días. Cansail ar fád ghlacha leis go rud anluach for an tuisce. Agus go cheacham níos mó measa bheith in na scanádú a cheapan.
Fresh water can also be in short supply in the slums of Delhi. In recent years, delayed monsoon rains and poor water management has led to some critical shortages across the city. Here, an incredible 30% of drinking water is wasted. Unable to spend millions on laying new pipes, the Delhi government uses fleets of trucks to supply those parts of the city that have no running water. To the south of the city, the Jai Hind camp is home to around 1,200 families. Today, Bibi Fatima is taking her 2 plastic containers on her daily journey to meet the water truck. The area only had enough water for everybody very recently.
और सबसे पहले पानी का ये समस्या है, पहले 2014 से पहले 4 टैंकर आया करते थे बस्ती में. पहले लोग एक टैंकर में लोगों का बहुत ज़्यादा लड़ाइयाँ हो जाते थे, हम बहुत ज़्यादा जो है टैंकर के ऊपर से गिर जाते थे, हाथ पैर टूट जाते थे. तो हम लोग बैठ के 16 घर मिलके उसका बाद में हमने एमएलए के पास गया, हर एक संडे को मीटिंग किया, फिर उसका बाद 8 टैंकर कर दिया.
With no specific daily quota, the residents developed a way to share the water fairly amongst themselves. But for many families, carrying the water back home presents an added challenge.
और सबसे बड़ी बात ये है जो जिसका घर में कोई जेंट्स ना हो, वो पानी लाए तो कैसे लाए? अब इतने बड़े बर्तन तो उठा नहीं सकते हैं, तो लोग किसी का रिक्शा है तो रिक्शा में 2 बंदा पकड़ के उठा लेता है, और ना तो लोग बम्बू से जो है कंधे में करके उठा के लाते हैं. और सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत है जो लोग जब बुजुर्ग है वो कैसे उठा के लाएगा? अगर किसी को उठाने के लिए बोलता है तो 100-150 रुपये भी मांगता है, कोई फ्री में तो ढोके ला के नहीं देगा.
Because water in the slum is in such short supply, the residents have no option but to make efficient use of their daily allocation.
जी इसमें देखिए बर्तन, कपड़े, नहाना, खाना जो भी कोई है सारी चीज़ इसी पानी का इस्तेमाल करते हैं, और इस पानी का बचाव भी लोग बहुत करते हैं. इस बस्ती में ये खूबी है जो लोग बचाव बहुत करते हैं. जो कपड़ा धोते हैं उस पानी से लोग घर भी पोछा लगाते हैं, उससे पौधों में भी पानी डालते हैं, बच्चे का पोटी वगैरह भी धोते हैं. तो इतना ज़्यादा पानी की दिक्कतें हैं, आप मान के चलो.
But securing a dependable freshwater supply is not confined to the poorest communities. Rising in the Rocky Mountains, the Colorado River is one of the principal rivers of the United States. Fed by snowmelt from the Rockies, it winds its way through 7 states in the arid western plains and is a vital source of water for 40 million people. In 1922, water rights were divided between the states of the upper and lower river basin, paving the way for the construction of 15 dams. The most famous is the Hoover Dam.
A modern colossus, shouldering the rock-ribbed walls of Black Canyon, stemming and controlling the floods, and bending the will of a hitherto ungovernable stream, the Colorado River, to perform the fruitful tasks of a civilization rapidly invading the limits of its last frontier.
The dam created Lake Mead, a vast reservoir which by today provides water to 20 million people. But the supply to this and other reservoirs along the river is under threat.
Climate change is causing the entire Colorado River Basin to warm. And ultimately, what that results in is a lower runoff efficiency. So when we're looking at the amount of runoff that we receive, or the amount of precipitation compared to the amount of water getting in the reservoir, that relationship is changing. Starting in 2000, the Colorado River reservoirs were generally full, but the turn of the century marked a drying period for the Colorado River. So we've gone from reservoirs that were almost full to reservoirs that are in the 30 to 40% full range right now. We need to be prepared to use less.
As Lake Mead supplies water to the whole of the Las Vegas Valley, water restrictions were put in place soon after the drought began.
Okay, go ahead and look up 9512 Grand Canal.
Perry Kay has been a water waste investigator in the Las Vegas Valley for the past 18 years.
Water waste investigator 7158, time is now 7:07 a.m., 3rd of November. I have an irrigation system leak causing runoff. The types of water waste violations that are against the law are watering on the wrong day, or a broken sprinkler, or a malfunction, as we call them, where water is coming off the property. We have various ways of finding water waste. We patrol neighborhoods. Also, we have reports from the citizens that will report that there is a water waste violation going on. We'll investigate those as well. I have a day of the week violation, water group D on a Wednesday, winter schedule. Also have spray and flow, misaligned sprinklers causing runoff.
A big component that really matters is that outdoor water use. And so when we look at having a watering schedule, we don't get rain. So our grass really is all surviving based upon potable water that comes out of Lake Mead. And we joke that there's a special place in hell for people who water their lawn in winter the same amount of days they water when it's 108 degrees out here in the summer. So our watering schedule adjusts. You can water 6 days a week in the summer, 3 days a week in the spring and fall, and 1 day a week in the winter. We have less than 50% compliance despite having that mandatory watering schedule. And we found that, you know, it's important to have a carrot and a stick. And that's sort of the stick side of our approach, is having water waste investigators.
To help save water, a turf removal programme has been in place since 2000. Residents are paid for substituting their grass with desert-friendly planting. But this once voluntary option is about to change.
We worked with our legislature this last year to mandate the removal of what we call non-functional turf. So turf that is only serving an aesthetic purpose in our community has to be removed by 2026 and can no longer be irrigated with Colorado River water. We have been really aggressive in trying to stay ahead of our water use trends and really keep them in check and make sure we're using water as responsibly as we can.
Whilst vast swathes of green are still permitted, like golf courses, parks and playing fields, The phasing out of non-functional grass is a significant step in water conservation. But one company offers a purely cosmetic solution to those who still love their lawns.
Lawn paint is a product you apply to a lawn as if you're dyeing the lawn just like you'd be dyeing hair. And when lawn turns brown, paint it, and it stays green until the grass grows out. It's a little bit kooky. It's a product that's been known commercially. It's been used in Disneyland and theme parks and golf courses for decades. So it's not a new thing. It's just not something that consumers have been aware of. It always does settle the color after a few minutes, so it'll be a little brighter at first. We always have to be looking out for wind, because if this gets on you, it's going to stay there. I have many pairs of shoes that I used to really enjoy wearing that are now spotted green. After this is fully dried, you can roll around on the grass just like anything else. It will not harm the groundwater. It does not harm the grass at all. It's completely safe, non-toxic. This is simply colorant. It doesn't make the grass grow. It doesn't kill weeds. It just makes everything green. Our business heats up in different parts of the country at different times of year based on the normal seasons. Parts of California are very dry in the summer, so we'll sell it there when it's dry there. Places like Florida can have dry spells in the winter, depending upon where we're talking about. There's also the case that when you have an event, a wedding business, or a home that's being staged for sale, anything that's brown or patchy is going to look terrible, and real estate agents across the country understand that they have to make that home look saleable, so grass paint, lawn paint is one of the ways that they do that.
With an average of 190 wet days each year, painting their lawns is something the inhabitants of the west of Scotland are never likely to have to do. So one of the challenges for local architects, like Martin Bailey, is to create buildings that can withstand Scotland's soggy climate.
As an upbuild yellow akin you hash as much as tall as many different elements in a nishke the mesk Chinese jack can take us a be at gach larach every sakin. Smashin a Chinese jack gima tra as an upbuild yellow I guess a notion enough could go as a is that's a holiday. Ha fierst now my here it talk lots to be in a tenement and a glass rug as shown how quick into the head ha tar head in the ballach and market it just snasig had I guess this had written a hound guess Karen greenies or had in a horst dive ach ha the gen written practical kitcha then a huiske a touch Mrs. Strug she is in the ballach and ha gehelical fall of an taglach gach to this ha tar in a fierst and other had a gunne grach guess iske a helical fall of a bharach gyda grínias agus Karen spaidirach a thorst gan a taglich in hain.
In nearby Helensburgh stands the Hill House, a magnificent building designed by the world-famous Scottish architect Charles Rennie Mackintosh. But flaws in the design means the building is prone to damp, so the National Trust covered it in a chainmail mesh to protect it from the rain and allow the house to dry out. An admirer of Mackintosh's work, Martin's come to analyse the damage rain has wreaked on the building.
Here is a show ground in the written high. I think it's written about Mackintosh ik vier in een nach de opdrich nach de Hardewig Rova. Nachel cells each in the Hunyakin. Gero Mackintosh ik vier is a render or hadish it can mulch in the Hunyakin, I guess in the Tubulchin gach count and tie. Ik should get my urnasach geval the canal my vier is a render make shachet is hadish it gach pieced in tie and then die back gema mater noch an ocean. Varus munich again now can gaction Janov a classic Portland cement with the vacatur oos. I guess nach rood beloche tuction again now. agus a dulgad is a bhain ha Portland cement gama díanach agus le epic an uisce isteach an taglach a chalige sin amach as iad. Mar sin ha lé guisce an brain an ballachan agus ré úne he sé tíach a grata agus ha e chlach a tuite mas a chéide tuhstoi an cádach a ha timimiid. Gymryd dyrif cysd yn y rydyn sáris efo Macintosh fiach ni anna leis an dau a chyrth ceart féimiis an stail editoriality agus na bheith fiach ni anna a ha gyma aineitir ag an tól agus cydramach gunne in an alwapa dhéan agus ag léig sé cysd gyma tainte agus dyrif a hawn as chynniol fregar stawn haast.
Finding answers to challenging questions is at the heart of the World Resources Institute's mission, as they advise governments and multinationals on the most efficient use of our natural resources. At their Beijing office, Tiani Luo and his team know that one industry more than any other is responsible for the world's dwindling freshwater reserves.
Agriculture is by far the biggest water user on the planet, accounting for about 95% of the total amount of water that humans consume every year.
About 70% of the groundwater withdrawn globally is used for agriculture, and many of the most rapidly depleting groundwater sources, or aquifers, are beneath some of the world's largest irrigated lands.
To put it simply, an aquifer is where groundwater is stored. When water is needed in places where there isn't any surface water or there isn't enough surface water, we dig into the earth and we get water from the groundwater aquifers. But aquifers are like bank accounts. If you take out more than you put in, sooner or later, it'll be depleted. India is by far the largest groundwater user in the world. And our data shows that the average groundwater level under India's northern plains has been declining by over 8 centimeters every year for the past 20 years or so. The official data from the Indian government shows that for the entire country, over 17% of its groundwater blocks are already overexploited.
Rajasthan, in the northwest of India, is the most water-deficient state in the country. The semi-arid landscape is pockmarked by boreholes and wells dug by generations of farmers desperate to access the precious groundwater reserves. Water levels here are critically low, as wells grow ever deeper and many rivers have run dry. But since 1984, thanks to the efforts of Rajendra Singh, also known as the Waterman of India, many communities have now managed to regenerate their once arid landscape by reviving the ancient water harvesting method of the Johad, or percolation pond, that stores rainwater and recharges groundwater levels. Today, Singh is revisiting a recently constructed Johad to see the impact it has had on the community and the surrounding land.
कि ये तालाब गांव के पसीने से बना, गांव के पसीने से बने हुए इस तालाब को हम आज इनको इसका मालिक बना रहे हैं.
Singh's work is recognised worldwide. In 2015, he was awarded the Stockholm Water Prize for his efforts in improving water security for the people of India. As well as regenerating the landscape, Johads also seem to have a direct impact upon the local climate.
तालाब नद एनीकट चेक डैम बनाए तो मिट्टी का कटाव रोका, मिट्टी में मॉइस्चर बढ़ा, तो मिट्टी में जब मॉइस्चर बढ़ा तो उस मिट्टी में हरियाली आने लगी. वो जो हरियाली थी उसने हमारी धरती का जो नंगी थी, वीरान थी, जो एक तरह से रेन शैडो रीजन बन गई थी, वो हरियाली आने लगी और हरियाली आने से उस हरियाली ने ट्रांस एवोपरेशन शुरू किया। उसके कारण माइक्रो क्लाउड फॉर्मेशन होने लगे और उन माइक्रो क्लाउड्स ने जो हमारे मैक्रो क्लाउड आते थे अरेबियन सी से और बे ऑफ बंगाल से, उनको अपनी तरफ अट्रैक्ट करना शुरू किया। तो जो हमारी रेन शैडो रीजन थी, अब वो पूरे का पूरा रेनफेड एरिया हो गया। अब वहाँ बहुत अच्छी खेती होती है। हमने पिछले 38 सालों में 11,800 बांध जोहड़ बनाए और इनके कारण 17 लाख लोगों को रोजगार मिला। 1200 गांव जो उजड़ गए थे, बेपानी हो गए थे, वो लोग अपने आप वापस आके पानी आते के साथ।
And Singh believes that these kinds of results can only be achieved on a local level.
सामुदायिक विकेंद्रित जल प्रबंधन करने की जरूरत है। भारत में 15,000 से भी ज्यादा छोटी-छोटी नदियां हैं। उन नदियों में गांव के लोग अपनी नदियों को, अपने ओढ़ों को, अपने नालों को पुनर्जीवित करने का काम करने लगे। यही मेरा विजन है।
On this isolated island off the west coast of Ireland, monks sought solitude from the 6th century onwards. They also had to learn to make efficient use of their limited water supply. They came here because they believed that such an extreme location would give them a closer relationship with God.
Viadar a lorog fásach agus áitna mar seo áit íorgúlta cruig an rud be dhéire do ásach a déad fiáil in éireann.
And like a desert, the island has a shortage of fresh water.
Léon tubair an Ileán. Ní léon tubair fíor isce, ní léon abhainn, níl fíor isce an Ileán ach a hitan an uas ón spéir. So, dá méocht trimacht seachtainna ann, dá méocht trimacht cúpla seachtainna ann, fiúhan trimacht lé ann, de chahadís bheith séhrú chun isce chur fáil, mar ní bharid is seachtain gan an tuisce sons.
Being in such an exposed location, the monks would have had to contend with harsh weather conditions and plenty of rain, so they devised an ingenious method of harvesting the rainwater.
When it rained, the water would have come down and filled the well. So what we're looking at here is these upright orthostats, as we call them, and they've utilised the natural rock at the back, the sloping rock, and then you have this flagged bottom to it, like we have out here, and really kind of using the natural geology to manage the water collection. So they worked with nature to ensure that they could survive out here. So they were in tune with nature. The way they utilised the sloping rock and then the channels that they put into it along the fault lines of the rock itself showed quite a sophisticated understanding of the geology. The cisterns here are really, I suppose, unique into themselves though. They really set out to make sure that they had a source of fresh water when they needed it. You would have had a vibrant community here that would have had, the need to use quite a bit of water. During that period, there was a deterioration in the climate, so it became a lot more storms, it became colder, so living conditions here may well have become just untenable and they had to move back to the mainland.
Between Scotland's mainland mountain masses and the island of Skye lies the Applecross Peninsula, one of Britain's remotest settlements. In the past, Applecross could only be reached by boat, and until recent decades, only by a treacherous high pass.
sé deáte bhna bhí fuidir chana dóíach bharú ag an imimech an tí go sa bí duna denmh díchail agus bhá díchailach bhá denú fé mai dhéana nearans. Thula táta bhachta bhá tú go féim.
To survive, this small community has had to use its resources creatively, including making the most of its abundant rain.
Go fatar astri da bhí a hoch va fioin sa choirsnach smínige go féim sinne grach in stúrich ein hín as an aimri teach go bhí féimach in Eric at the Hunollar san project an a chuidir dói a bhí na bhuanach an na choirsnach agus va skema haidú car an fólaseach mar éisian play rút mar sin cháisiche go cearstan a da bhí sa coig díag ai project chuidir dói ar san jaaranan a réich. Va féimach in carstal million nocht a hokal. Tuus dai coig seachcanan agus reinint na gráchéir an in na slúna céir seachcanan. So gyma lua, va déine gyma teichgal feicin gyroi na frósect gyma örstach a skíre big jumalach mar a chanasad. Da loch was cíine seo loch an Éileán agus loch na Lárach agus an tuisce is trúige amach na loch an beice sin síos tronelt seach an na fála seo agus nuair sin ha dul fóin mar is trícha strúige amach tron na scrín a cha cúteach go dul steach an na fí smór concrete a sin agus an nátartí inlet an brein na concrete agus an tuisce dul steach an na fí agus ha fí beruí fan talamh síos gan taith uí am nuair sin.
The electricity created by the dam is sold to the national grid, enabling the community to take positive action in safeguarding its own future.
Agus ha skema chócútarmach or mochúla bh seo mar farsin na skema as na buanach gan na higas ha company na cairsnach an tachaigh seo cheannach agus hasin an dú go bí taihanna dolasteach taihannig prís réisanta. Bhí is na chúteach daine ácha go sáiste hálaigh in na scíre agus a chumal scíre am háidir san fuachán lá núne. So sin ús a cútarmach agus ha dealainn a ha tín mar farsin na skema haidró bhí sin na dolasteach in na taihan ag a cheann hail. So hasin feicin mar a ha carcail glúasad dealainn na dolasteach in na taihan agus daine a chumal agus go bí táte tín beá ríist.
In Kenya, a different form of regeneration is taking place, using a simple yet groundbreaking rain harvesting method. Lanoi Metakini works for the Maasai Wilderness Conservation Trust, who have teamed up with the Just Dig It charity to make the most of the rainfall in the area. Working with local people across Kenya and Tanzania, Just Dig It have regreened over 60,000 hectares of land and have brought over 6 million trees back to life. Their aim is to expand these projects across Africa.
When I was growing up, there were a lot of trees and vegetation cover as compared to now. I also get stories from my parents and my grandparents on how the rainfall was there before. There were a lot of rains as compared to now, and there were flowing rivers in Kuku, which have now all dried up. The landscape has changed due to various factors, such as overgrazing and increase of population and human activities, such as conversion of wetlands to farmlands. The level of rainfall has dropped. For example, last year we had 400 mils of rainfall. There were no long droughts as we're experiencing today, which is leading to the livestock moving to other communities in search of pasture. As a result, we are getting conflicts with the other communities because of the few resources. As a community, we noticed these negative effects. And we decided to have the band project as an initiative to help harvesting water so that we can have sustainable vegetation even during the dry seasons.
Bunds are semicircular holes 2.5 metres long and 5 metres wide. They are dug by hand in areas that have a slight incline to prevent water runoff. Persistent droughts have caused the top layer of soil to harden, preventing rain from seeping into the ground. Digging the bunds loosens the soil and begins the process of regeneration. Part of Lanoi's work involves travelling to Maasai communities in the Kuku Group ranch to demonstrate how to dig and seed the bunds.
After the intervention, there was a big difference. New indigenous trees coming back and new bushes. By bringing back the vegetation, we are able to cool down the place. And also by having more vegetation, the carbon is absorbed, and as a result, we get more rainfall. Africa and the rest of the world can learn what we are doing here, because if we managed to do it here, they can also do it, as it is important not only to their livelihoods, but also to the ecosystem. Rain harvesting is very important, as it will enable us to be sustainable even during the dry seasons.
Just Dig It's projects have allowed thousands of people to remain in their homes instead of being displaced by droughts. Droughts which are partly linked to changes thousands of miles away in some of the most awe-inspiring ecosystems on our planet. Rainforests. Often described as the lungs of the world, these vast swathes of forest convert carbon dioxide into the oxygen we all breathe. But they also play a key role in the water cycle and are a vital tool in regulating the global climate.
Tropical rainforests have so many interesting features, but one of the most surprising to many people is that they actually generate their own rainfall. Rainforests are a critical part of the water cycle because they're able to draw water from deep in the soil. There are places in the Amazon where roots from trees go down more than 40 feet, and they draw water that's been stored from rainy seasons years past. That water flows from those deep roots up through the leaves and into the atmosphere, where it starts the cycle of convective storms, thunderstorms, and other rainfall patterns. That biotic pump is such a critical part of our understanding of the tropics and its role in the rainy season, as well as its impacts then on the rest of the globe.
But this fragile cycle is under threat, as 10 million hectares of primary forest is cut down every year.
Tropical rainforests are part of their own self-sustaining rainfall cycle. If 50% of the rain that falls on the Amazon region has been passed through at least one tree, then removing trees risks interrupting that biotic pump, reducing the amount of rainfall, and changing where those areas of rainfall, the winners and losers of rainfall, not just in the tropical rainforest regions, but across the globe.
Whilst deforestation in itself has a significant and direct impact upon rain formation, the way in which the forest is cleared is also having catastrophic consequences.
Fires are a critical part of the deforestation process. So we look across the tropics, looking down from space with our satellites, we see fires springing up every year across the agricultural frontiers, pushing further into tropical rainforest regions. Those fires send smoke high into the atmosphere, and it turns out that that smoke actually prevents clouds from forming. So one of the most sinister feedbacks is that those fires prevent rain from forming. So fires during the dry season across the Amazon frontier actually delay the onset of the rainy season. we've seen that the rainforest dry season has gotten longer, putting rainforest regions even beyond the deforestation frontier at risk of drought and dieback associated with that reduction in rainfall.
The Honghe Hani rice terraces in China receive a massive 1,400 millimetres of rain every year. But this area is also prone to dry periods. For 1,000 years, the Hani people have harnessed their rainwater by creating and managing an intricate network of interconnected terraces fed by ditches. But delayed rainy seasons are causing many of the ditches to dry up. The process of regenerating the terrace begins with clearing and seeding. Once that is done, attention can be turned to diverting the water into it. As ditch leader, Yang Chengzhang is responsible for the maintenance of the ditches in his village. His daily work involves inspecting the water flow of the ditches and fixing them where necessary. Today, he and the other villagers are replacing some of the wood used to control the flow of the water to the ditches. Regular upkeep by all the communities who live here means that a constant flow of water allows the terraces to flourish, maintaining a 1,000-year-old tradition. The narrative surrounding climate change tends to focus on the lack of rain, but extreme flooding due to excessive rainfall is a problem that many communities around the world are having to face more and more often. According to the World Bank, 1.47 billion people globally are directly exposed to the risk of extreme flooding, and over a third of them are poor. Mitigating this threat is one of the major challenges facing governments around the world. To deal with the problem of floods in the rapidly expanding cities of China, Professor Yu Konyang has come up with the idea of creating green spaces that can absorb all the excess water.
这海绵就是要让水有空间，首先你要让自然水要有它的出处，给水以空间，因为水它必须要有空间，所以这就是海绵城市的理念，这是我一直在倡导的。工业文明留下来的灰色的基础设施，成绿色的生态的基础设施。一个小村庄，两边 溪流2条溪流，就从小就跟在河里游泳在河里抓鱼，是吧？小时候这个洪水来了鱼就上来了，所以对洪水有一种非常有期盼的这种心情，知道怎么样管理水，知道水怎么样能够灌溉庄稼所以这就是从小就学会了跟自然的这种和谐的关系。
And Professor Yu's love of nature played a key role in his radical solution to the problems caused by the rapid expansion of the Chinese urban landscape during the 1980s and 90s.
是吧？所以我最早提出了这个关于海绵的概念，把自然的城市中的湿地、城市中的河流、城市中的湖泊、城市中的低洼地，都要变成海绵，变成平时就是公园绿地。 下雨的时候，这些地方都可以容纳水，历史上就是这样。中国古代黄河流域的城市都是这样的。
Simple ideas informed Professor Yu's planning. Since water fills the lowest ground first, that is where the green spaces need to go. This means building the parks next to the rivers and building important infrastructure on higher ground. That is easy enough to do in new cityscapes, but what can you do with areas which have already been built upon?
北京的永兴河都是水泥、钢筋、采网取直的，是吧？一条水区，那我们就用了海绵城市的理念，把这个硬化的河堤去掉，水泥去掉，然后变成了生态的、绿色的海绵河道，就是让雨就地能够渗下来。 就地渗到地下去。
The sponge city concept allows the city to absorb floodwater, to store it in ponds and tanks for future use in case of drought, and to create green spaces where people can relax and enjoy urban life in a beautiful setting. China has trialled the idea in 30 cities, but Professor Yu's vision is even broader.
与其花几百亿、上千亿做防洪堤，我不如让这些田给淹掉，淹掉了才能保住城市，淹掉了才能保住农村。但庄稼地是可以淹掉，因为淹完以后，它不用化肥，可以不使用化肥，少用化肥。从海绵城市到海绵田园，再到海绵国土，就是让国土来吸收、净化雨水，补充地下水，然后滋润这个整个土地，是吧？ 万物得以昌盛。
Rain has a huge impact on our lives. The fact that we need it to survive means it has always shaped our traditions and customs. But as the climate changes, so will where and when rain falls. Communities will need to adapt when extremes become more commonplace. Some of the solutions will be global, some will be local. But all of us will have to learn when to conserve and when to control rain. So the more we know about rain, the better we can respond to the challenges ahead.